is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
What's up, y'all? This is One Royal Way here on Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Joel Penfield, Jordan Foote, and Josh Keiser joining me as always. Gentlemen, how was your 4th of July holiday?
I had an exhausting one. It seemed like it was just packed to the gills with rest and relaxation, which when you have kids just turns into parenting elsewhere.
Mine was good. I drank a fair amount of beer and lit off a couple fireworks and didn't get in trouble from the law, which is always a good thing. Didn't lose any digits, which is an even better thing. So it was all good fun. Ate a bunch of food. You know, it was a fairly standard one for me, but it was still a good time.
I realized this year that becoming a parent has turned me into the crotchety asshole that gets mad at fireworks at all times. Like when my neighbors have been shooting off fireworks for pretty much a week now, right around 1:30, which is when my son is napping. I'm like, I can't do it. And then it gets past about 11:30 midnight. It's, man, what are we doing here? I got to work tomorrow. And I never thought I would be that guy, but I am that guy now, and I kind of hate it. I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's tough. We might get serenaded by some fireworks over in my neighborhood. I have some jackasses 3 houses down that last year were lighting them into August. It was like August 3rd. They were still firing off.
No.
Very well could be, at 1 a night usually, and it's usually about 9 p.m. right when it gets dark. So by the time we might be done recording, you may be here in a little bit.
Well, hopefully my neighbors have some sort of common courtesy and decency, right? We'd love that. We'd love that thing. Before we get into, we had a loaded episode. The most of this episode is going to be draft heavy because it is this Sunday in Seattle. Royals are picking 8th after getting absolutely bent over a barrel by the ping pong balls in the lottery. But we'll have some thoughts on that and some guys to look out for that the Royals could take there at that 8th overall pick. Before we do that, the show, as always, brought to you by Kansas City Strength and Conditioning. Be sure to check them out if you have a baseball or softball player in the area that needs a place to train. KCSC, one of the best in the area. The Royals had an interesting week. Not very pretty, at least in that Cleveland series. Freddie Fermin comes up big in the day game in extra innings to give the Royals the win there to salvage one game against the Guardians. And then after getting whacked on Friday, come out and they win the next 2 against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, this is not the same juggernaut Los Angeles Dodgers, but still a team that is very much going to be in the playoff mix the rest of the season. And in a season where the Royals have now won 25 games up to this point, they have split a series with Tampa Bay and beaten taking 2 out of 3 from the Los Angeles Dodgers, but cannot win series against the A's, the Rockies, and the Nationals. Baseball makes so much sense so often. To keep things as succinct as possible, since we have a lot to get through on the back half of this, Josh, we'll start with you. What was some of your just overarching thoughts from the week of Royals baseball?
Overarching thoughts about the on-field product was that it was nice to see Marsh make his debut, and then he faced a really tough lineup. 4 innings, gave up 5 earned, and then Lynch had a pretty solid start against the Dodgers, and the Singer start was really, really good. So it was nice to see those 3 guys kind of come up, step to the mound, and take it to a pretty good team that loves to see pitches, and nice to see them succeed. But off the field, to me, it the wave started when that John Sherman press conference came on board, because it seemed like the main takeaway that I took away from that was, however you felt about John Sherman going into that press conference, you came out and heard everything that just solidified your take on John Sherman after that. If you liked him, you loved everything he said. If you hated him, you hated everything he said, and it just lost it. But if you were kind of indifferent, just kind of listening for what you wanted to hear or what was being said, I think there was quite a bit of information, mainly about the new stadium, but just the plan of how to keep them into a Kansas City, as a major league team. So it sounded like the ownership group wants to keep them there. They kind of have a plan to do that, and kind of centered around that stadium is the new plan to inject revenue and become more of a contender in the Kansas City area. So that's kind of what I drew from it, the main idea, overarching theme. But that's basically what I got.
I like it. People, I think Joel said this. People just wanted to find a reason to be mad, and with how bad the baseball team was, they were going to find that reason anyway. Even if he said, "Hey, stuff's going to change. We're going to do this, that, and the other." Some people be like, "Well, then the kids aren't going to play, and you're going to spend this money." There would have been some people out there that got mad and said, "You don't need to do this. You should be doing that." Like, no matter what, people were going to be mad. What did they expect him to say? Yes, we totally expected this team to be bad. I, as the owner, expected this to happen. He did say something along the lines of Q and Piccolo knew what they were getting into, which is true. They knew it was going to be a long developmental process, and also showed they're not getting fired anytime soon, despite what some people are going to bring up. But he said what I thought he was going to say. Again, people are confirming their priors basically with that. But I think you hit the nail on the head. The overarching thing still is about the stadium that has yet to be decided on.
I think that was my biggest takeaway was I wanted to see some kind of clarity from the stadium perspective. We got a little bit, but the fact that they're still coming around and we're still deciding between two locations and we're trying to get this done before the ballot, but it's weird how the Royals are saying we're the ones that are trying to expedite this process, and the city's dragging their feet, and then the city's turning around and saying the Royals are dragging their feet. Like,
and the Chiefs, the back and forth with that. I was like, okay.
It's just an ugly. I don't want this to get ugly. Is my main takeaway. Is like just find a plot of land, bulldoze whatever you have to, and get this freaking thing done. Because I just don't want this to drag its feet any longer than it's gonna.
Hey, they're just playing the game.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I do not know the inner workings of what it's like to build $1 billion baseball stadium. That's a couple sets of zeros that I am not familiar with. Yeah. So I'm not going to try and have some sort of hard opinion on it. It's just I want to see some kind of clarity and direction. We got it kind of, but not really. Josh, what was your or Jordan? Sorry, what was your thought for the week?
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of ugly. Drew Waters' first 15 games back after his injury, he was hitting 182, striking out 36.7% of the time with a 44 WRC plus. Then over the next 11 games, he hit 229, didn't walk a single time, struck out 42% of the time with a 79 WRC plus. Over the last week, though, 8 hits and 24 plate appearances, only struck out a quarter of the time. On base percentage 458, a 176 WRC plus. So Drew Waters, man, before the year, I'm pretty sure all three of us were like, hey, he's the guy to keep an eye on instead of Kyle Isbell. Now the team made it pretty clear Kyle Isbell was going to get every chance to be the center fielder. And they're both still with the team. They're both healthy now. But Drew Waters, man, if he can strike out just like 33% of the time, 31% of the time, 30% of the time, like the closer he can get to that 30 mark, it doesn't have to be 20 or 25. I think the bat will eventually level out. And he's at an 85 WRC plus right now. He can get that up to 94, 95 by the end of the year. I think the defense, I haven't looked at the metrics, but it seems by the eye test it's playing a little bit better than it was last year. So I think he's someone to keep an eye on. Again, these are like very brief and segmented kind of setups here with 11 games, 15 games, 8 games, but he seems to be settling back in.
So Drew Waters, you mentioned the defense. I already had Savant pulled up. He's already at 3 outs above average, which is currently 22nd among all qualified center fielders, which obviously he had a little bit of a slower start, but in 30 games to have that kind of number is pretty impressive. He looks like a guy that can handle center field at Kauffman, which I know is a little bit of a question, but he has served himself very well there.
I think the one thing I want to see from him moving forward, I can absolutely live with a 35% K rate as long as there's a walk rate to go with it. If he's just striking out because he can't make contact, that's one thing. But if he's striking out because he's taking pitches, lasting deep, going deeper in accounts, I think that'll be, that's obviously the key to most of this offense and most of this at bats. And last year he had like an 11.8% walk rate, I think is what it was in the short and small sample size. Never really walked a ton in the major or the minor leagues. So I don't know if this is realistic or not, but if he can keep that walk rate above an 8%, I will absolutely take a 34% K rate and swallow it and play, with his defense kind of added in there. I'd say that's absolutely something that this team could use.
Yeah, absolutely. So my one thought is Maikel Garcia has probably become my favorite player on the team over the past week and a half or so, especially getting him in the leadoff spot where he probably belongs. That's where he's been for the majority of his professional career at this point, all through the minor leagues. That was his thing. He's a great table setter, a high contact guy with a feel for the barrel. And when he gets on base, he said, like he's a guy that can go and steal bags for you.
Yeah.
And he's proving all of that right now. And it's a small sample, yada, yada. It's at the, like coming into today, it was 27 plate appearances as a leadoff hitter, but he's slashing 478, 539, 652. And that includes that game on Sunday where he went 4 for 4 with a couple RBIs and was just, he's a great table setting leadoff hitter, the kind of guy that this team needs. And they've tried a couple of different things. Like they tried MJ up at the leadoff spot. They've tried Bobby. They've tried Nick Prado.
Yeah.
And Prado was okay for a minute, but the strikeouts are just a little too high for that type of guy at the top of the lineup for the Royals, at least right now. Maikel Garcia doesn't strike out a ton, and he'll take a ton of pitches. He'll walk, and he'll put the ball in play, which is just what they need right in front of Bobby Witt Jr., who has that combination at the top has really sparked both of them. So it's really I think we're going to see that for the foreseeable future. And on top of that, Maikel Garcia is the second best third baseman in baseball via outs above average, a position he had never played until AAA this year. And the only other guys he's surrounded by in the top before you get to number 6 are all National League guys. There's a very real chance that Maikel Garcia could pick up a Gold Glove at third base this year if he continues on this pace, which would be absolutely insane. And if he's doing that and he continues to hit the way he has, he might pick up a couple Rookie of the Year votes too. I'm not saying he's going to win. Like Josh Young probably has that on lock right now, but that was not a storyline I had expected coming into the year, that he could be like a top 5 Rookie of the Year type guy for the Royals this year.
He has 13 games less than Luke Raley does for Tampa Bay. Luke Raley has a 2.5 WAR. Josh Young has a 2.3 WAR on Fangraphs. Maikel Garcia is at 1.9. He's played less games than both of those guys. His WRC plus is less than both of those guys, but his defense is so solid, so good at third base, that he is now third in the American League in F4 as far as rookies go. So there is a very real possibility that if he keeps this up, he's going to be at the minimum top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting, which is some kind of draft pick compensation. I can't remember what it is.
I think top 3 is, I think you get a comp pick.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the Royals just missed out on that with Bobby. Because he finished
Was there some kind of opening day roster caveat to that? I can't remember for sure.
Can't remember.
Something to look into. But I mean, you're talking about Maikel Garcia potentially being a top 3 AL Rookie of the Year in voting at third base, at a position that he did not start the year out at, a very limited playing time at, and is still absolutely performing to what, beyond even our standard. I mean, we kind of had pretty big expectations from him to be at least a good shortstop. And I think he's blowing our expectations even out of the water at this point.
Yeah, it's the prospect promotion incentive. So that sounds like there was a service time / availability element with that. So I'm not sure Garcia would qualify. I'm trying to read and talk at the same time, but Joel either did look it up or can push us forward while I keep looking.
Yeah, I'm just going to push us forward into our transactions for the week. The biggest one being came at the end of last week, of course, way after we recorded, but we talked about this being a possibility. Didn't think it was going to happen right now, but Aroldis Chapman, no longer a Kansas City Royal. He was picked up by the Texas Rangers, which is a team that we had floated for the previous couple of weeks, a team that desperately needs a true stopper in the back end of the bullpen. Chapman's that guy. The Royals get back Cole Reagans, who has gotten some big league time, mostly been a reliever, but has some starting experience. He is in AAA right now. It sounds like the Royals are going to stretch him out to start. I bet pretty soon after the All-Star break, Cole Reagans is going to get a spot every fifth day in the rotation. I'd imagine that is now the case with Zach Greinke going on the injured list today. The Royals rotation is just kind of an amoeba at this point. I don't want to try and understand it. I'm just ready for the All-Star break to kind of get some structure back. And then Rony Cabrera, 17-year-old, kind of a lottery ticket he's still in the DSL. I don't even think he's made his stateside debut yet. Mm-hmm. Probably won't see that until maybe next year with the complex. But you never know what you're going to get with those types of guys. The return was interesting. We thought maybe they could get a little bit more, but I think the bottom line here is maybe this is the reliever market, and this is the market kind of correcting back, because teams for a while, the last couple of years at least, have overpaid for rental relievers just because they want to have a guy like that, especially a more high-profile one like Chapman, who's probably the best reliever on the market. I'm not upset at the return. I'm not thrilled by it, but it's fine. Like, I think they got at least a big league piece and a lottery ticket. To me, that's fine. I'll just be curious to see how the rest of the reliever market plays out over the next month to see how the Royals did in comparison there.
Yeah, so it seemed like people were ticked off at Cole Reagans being the quote-unquote MLB ready guy that didn't really have great results when he last played at the big league level, and then everyone wanted to complain about that. Like, when he graduated from their system last September, he was like their 12th ranked prospect. And then Rony Cabrera is the lottery ticket that you should be throwing in those trades. A guy that makes loud contact, that has decent speed, projects. He's a young guy. And I had talked to you guys in text a couple weeks ago that the Royals did get an offer from that same team. And it was for a top 20 prospect that was a pitcher. That's what I was told. Now, there could have been, I think Josh brought up, maybe it was a former top 20 prospect and he was 12th, but also the guy that I was told was closer to 10 than he was to 20. So you're looking at the package, it's pretty consistent. And if the Royals see something or saw something in Cole Reagans at the time of that they wanted him, then that makes total sense. And you get Cabrera, and everyone brought up the what's the site, the baseball trade values chart that absolutely shat on the trade. And I was like, okay, I tweeted it out and said, like, context is important here. Cabrera was listed as cash. Like, it's not even really a notable thing. But like, people can be upset at the return. They can be upset that Cole Reagans has 2 blown UCL Tommy John surgeries already. But at the end of the day, they got pretty much consistently what we all thought they were potentially going to get. And when you factor in maybe the market reset a little bit, I think it's roughly what I expected. Maybe I'm just lower on what I thought Chapman was worth.
It does, Joe, I'm kind of with you, as I'm curious to see what this does to the reliever market moving forward, because naturally, if this is it is going to be a light reliever market, then naturally the Royals have the top 2 guys at the top of that reliever market. That's just how this seems to work. They have the 2 best guys that you could possibly deal for at this moment, and they're super cheap to acquire now, apparently, for whatever it is. But I was also kind of on board with it feeling a little light, just basically based off of what I kind of went through a few weeks ago about the returns from last year's season. It didn't seem like he even got the David Robertson haul of like the Ben Brown, who was a 21-year-old high A that was doing really well. David Robertson was 3 years older than Aroldis Chapman is now. Aroldis is better. His stuff is better. But obviously there are concerns about both of them holding up through a whole season. So it felt like that was at the floor of what was going to happen in this trade market. And to see that potentially less than is definitely a little bit disappointing. I will say that I did kind of see a little bit of potential why. I did look at his last few starts, 2 at Round Rock and the one in Omaha on Sunday or Saturday or Sunday. It was a makeup on Saturday night, but it looked like he has good stuff. He went 4 innings, and then, like Joel said, the wheels kind of fell off in the 5th, where the control kind of went out the door, and every fastball he threw was right down the pipe. But beyond that, kind of looking a little bit deeper, he has reverse splits, which is interesting. I didn't know that until today, that his ability to get righties out is there. And I think that is what he's able to do now. if he could just get lefties out consistently, then maybe there's something there. And maybe they could add like a slider or a sweeper to kind of help out with those left-handed ABs to get those guys out. And maybe that's the next step forward. So there's a lot of maybes in this situation. Roney is the biggest maybe of the situation, and we may not see him know what he's worth for another 3 or 4 seasons. And that's really when we start to get a real bearing on what happened in this trade. So we're gonna have to be patient to see him, but it is what it is. And let's just wait to see what the Barlow return is.
Yep, we're gonna go look at Cole Reagans here pretty soon, I'd imagine, in Kansas City. One more note: before we recorded last week, Brad Keller had made had started his rehab assignment in AAA after a shoulder injury. It's not good, to put it lightly.
Hey, the second was better than the first.
Okay, he still walked 3. He has not struck out anybody in AAA.
Well, that's not his MO anyway.
Wednesday he had 3. He made an appearance Wednesday and it was better, and he threw 28 strikes on 49 pitches and went 2 innings. But still, he's made progress, but that should have been the first one. Not after
the first
2.
outing. The first outing, it was a third of an inning. He gave up 2 runs. He walked 4 and didn't strike out anybody. I'd been faced 7 batters, I think 5 batters, and he walked 4.
Clearly working back. Yeah.
I don't even know if you're working back. Truly, I don't know what there is at this point with Brad Keller. I don't know what. Sure. There are other pitchers that are already coming up to the big leagues, and they're not doing what he was doing. Walk problems have always been an issue for him. I just think he's done. I think it's just done at this point. I don't know what to make of it. I wish him the best, but I just, at this point in the year, I don't know what the Royals have, what they have to gain and what he has to gain coming back at this point. I don't know. We got a couple more.
He's going to get shots.
He's going to get a shot, and he's going to walk a billion dudes, and it's going to be painful as hell. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Welcome back. Quick couple other transaction notes here. Angel Zerpa is making a rehab assignment. We talked about that last week, a couple weeks ago, that he was in AA. Now he's in AAA. Mixed results. The strikeout numbers are up for him, which has not necessarily been his MO throughout the minor leagues. So that's been really good to see. The walks, I totally understand. And also the ABS system is super flawed in AAA. So I take a lot of the walk numbers with a grain of salt. Alec Marsh got promoted. He started tonight. He's been fine. Nothing. He's about what we thought he was going to be. The stuff is good enough to get strikeouts. The command is not great. So he's going to walk some dudes. And when he leaves that fastball right down the middle, it's going to get hammered. That we've seen little bits of all of that. But at this point, I'm cool with the Royals giving him a shot. Frank Mazzucato got promoted to high A, which was a long time coming. The Royals needed to make that happen. I realized I actually saw the Columbia Fireflies said he is their all-time strikeout leader. I think it was 174 strikeouts. Yeah. I know. Whoa. Well, because how often do dudes repeat lower? Yeah, especially guys that are of that caliber. But, essentially it was one full season when you think about it, because he debuted, I think it was the beginning of June of 22. And then by the beginning of July, he's going up to Quad Cities. So hope he can just continue the strikeout numbers. The walks, he's just got to find a way to mitigate them. But the stuff was too good for low A, I'd imagine. When you still have a plus pitch like he has with that curveball, he's still going to dominate high A hitters to some degree. And that'll be fun to watch. And one thing that's not on our notes, but just worth mentioning, I said it a bit ago, Zach Greinke is going on the injured list with I think it was just a right shoulder fatigue, I believe was the actual diagnosis, but said it's mild soreness. They're not worried about it, at least right now. They're hoping that he can sit and then come back after the All-Star break. Dylan Coleman comes back up, who still walking a ton of dudes in AAA, but the strikeout numbers have been better as of late, and the walks have come down in his last 2 outings. So good to see him back. Hopefully he's able to get back to his 2022 self and move on from there. All right, let's talk about the draft. Not wall-to-wall coverage like we had last year. Unfortunately, that not necessarily our forte, but we're going to do what we can here for you guys to talk about who the Royals are going to take at 8th overall in Seattle here on Sunday. a lot of different ways the Royals can go. The mock drafts have been kind of all over the place with who they could possibly take. So we'll run through the like a little round. Thankfully we rounded up all of at least the mock drafts that we know of, and we'll go from there and we'll talk about some of the names on here. The Baseball America one has the Royals taking Noble Meyer, right-handed prep pitcher out of Jesuit High School in Oregon. MLB Pipeline has the Royals taking Blake Mitchell, a catcher, prep catcher from Sinton, Texas. Joe Doyle, I can't remember the name of the publication he's at now off the top of my head, but he was the guy, he was at Prospects Live for the last few years. He has the Royals taking Colin Hawk, who is an prep shortstop, name that I admittedly am not too familiar with, but he's from Parkview, Georgia.
Good interview. Good kid.
Okay.
Just I watched a YouTube video because
very cool. Yeah.
Very brief aside, when I don't know how to pronounce names, I like obsessively go to YouTube and like have to listen to it. I'm a nerd. Anyway.
Perfect Game has the Royals taking Braden Taylor, a third baseman from TCU. He looks like he's a junior. And then Baseball Prospect Journal, Kyler McDaniel from ESPN, Mike Axia from CBS Sports have the Royals taking Blake Mitchell as well, same as the Pipeline mock. Keith Law from The Athletic has the Royals taking Kyle Teal, who is a catcher from Virginia, as well as Jordan Schusterman from Fox Sports has the Royals taking Kyle Teal. Which of those names pops out the most to you guys? For me, I think Kyle Teal is the best choice of the guys that have been mocked. I am just so terrified of prep right-handed pitchers, and it's nothing against Noble Meyer. He looks like he's probably the second best pitcher in this draft, at least in the first round. But prep righties have a bad track record, and as Royals fans know all too well, there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. And even though the Royals have overhauled the development on that side, maybe it makes you feel a little better. I just want to avoid prep righties in the first round like the plague and go and maybe find one later.
I totally understand that. I mean, that's the thought of a guy like Noble Meyer. I mean, he's got a sexy two-seamer, 97, 98 miles per hour, has a really solid slider, but he needs a better offering, needs a third offering. So as much as I love a nice two-seamer, I am scared to death of what could happen to him. That if they did that, I've got in my notes as a nuts on the table pick, because that is like, I am confident that this is my development system is going to make this guy a monster. And if they don't, we're all fired. That's what it kind of seems like that's the nuts on the table pick. But I agree. Kyle Teal would be fun. I think Colin Hawk might be my favorite one of this group. Being a prep shortstop, I think that he could grow into third base, and his swing does project to have pretty solid power, especially it's kind of like a raw project type of bat. And I feel like this system can absolutely develop a bat into that. So if they can turn a shortstop into a third baseman that plays a really good defense, does that sound familiar to Royals fans right now? And he could project as that power upside guy at a corner infield spot, become that dude. It'd just be too kind of enticing to pass that guy up. So out of this group, I think Colin Houck would be my my number one out of this group.
Man, you look at Colin Houck, like he's interesting, and he's not a my guy, and we'll talk about that later on. 18 years old, 6'2", 190, so he's already pretty well built. The Pipeline scouting report for him, 55 hit, 55 power, 50 runs, 60 arm, 50 field. Like I think he's a two-sport athlete. He played quarterback. I like what he brings to the table. Like, again, I haven't watched YouTube videos with every prospect in their interviews. But like, you can tell usually pretty early on if a guy stands out for a bad reason in an interview. And you're like, okay, even without meeting the kid, you're like, okay, well, maybe you don't want to take him that high. Maybe he's not built for that. Like, Colin Houck seemed to be built for that and seems to have come from a really good family. I think with his profile, again, not one of the necessarily popular names. I know it appeared in a mock draft, but not many of them. He probably stands out to me. I think Meyer, Houck, and then Kyle Teal, and we'll discuss Kyle Teal more later on.
One quick thing on Houck is I got him like at 19th overall in the aggregate board that I've got together. So if you're going to take him at 8, you're probably going to have to give him quite a bit of that slot value to get him away from the college commitment that he's headed towards. But he at least has that upside to be able to justify it to me. If you can tell me that this is a project guy that we're going to attach ourselves to, we're going to get him in the cage, make sure his hit tool is fine, and then be able to develop that power as you go, I'm fine giving full slot to a guy like that, as opposed to another one of these preps that kind of maybe has a little bit higher, safer floor, and you're going to give him a ton of money at 16th, 17th overall at the 108. That's going to be harder for me to swallow because I want upside. Out of this draft, I want upside, period.
That's a good kind of segue. Like, I know I put this in the notes as an idea, but you really hit the nail on the head. Do we want to talk for like 2 or 3 minutes, like slot savings and spending? Like Josh mentioned the upside. Like, I know you guys probably have very, like, if I were GM, I'd do this or focus on this. Do you have like any go-to draft strategies you would personally execute?
I think, well, what's weird is like the last couple of years, the Royals haven't necessarily had a tendency when it comes to how they've drafted. Like they went, obviously, like, no doubt pick with Bobby Witt Jr. And then they went and they tried the no doubt thing with Asa Lacy. And obviously that's blown up in their face. But again, no such thing as a pitching prospect. And then they go in the complete opposite direction, under slot Frank Mazzucato at 7. And to go get him to then take those savings and get Ben Kudrna, Shane Panzini, Carter Jensen. And then this past year, they get Gavin Cross. They took him at full slot. So it's not like we have an idea of what they're doing. And just to talk about the slot value thing for maybe people that are either unfamiliar or they don't know. So every pick in the first 10 rounds, there's 20 rounds of the MLB draft now. The first 10 picks, every pick has a slot value to it, and every team has X amount of money to spend on those 10 picks, and they can move that money around however they see fit. I believe the slot value at 8 for the Royals is $5.9 million. I might be wrong, but I think it's right in that range, like 5.96 million. So the Royals could take a guy and just give him that, say, $6 million, just for the ease of talking. Or if there's a guy they like on their board that they think fits in their system perfectly, like I'll go down here and say like Enrique Bradfield Jr., a name that people know. Like Enrique Bradfield Jr. is on the MLB pipeline board is 21. So say he's there at 18 or whatever. He's not going to get anywhere close to $5 million. The Royals could say, hey, we'll take you for 5. They save $1 million and kick that money down the line for their second or third round pick, or whoever it is, a guy they think has some really good value, a guy that maybe is a little lesser known, but has a solid, a much more hard commitment to college that maybe they can entice him to come pro rather than he goes to college, whatever it is. Like there's a variety of reasons that teams do it. And I just want people to understand, and I will hammer this point home probably every year. Just because the Royals possibly take a guy under slot does not mean the Royals are being cheap. It does not mean the Royals are trying to, cheap Walmart things and just because they're afraid to spend money. They're spending the money anyway. They're just moving it around to different picks. It does not mean they're being cheap.
Again,
I repeat, it does not mean the Royals are being cheap.
That was my main point. I don't have anything else. I was hoping one of us would bring it up. That was my point. Josh, you have anything on philosophy before we move on?
It's not going to be that earth shattering, but you can agree or disagree with them however you want, but I do still feel like this farm system is pretty deep in, fringe Major League Baseball players. So I'm going for upside for broke, and it doesn't, Absolutely. I mean, they're probably not going to get, it seems like there's a consensus top 5 that are basically can't miss for the most part, very safe bets between Cruz, Skeens, Langford, Jenkins, and Clark. After that, it's kind of a crapshoot. Everybody's got their warts after that. The value seems to be in college bats in this draft class. So I can see them kind of taking one of those dudes that they could potentially fast track. And some of those guys can come under slot and you can start playing slot games that way with a pretty good upside bat as well. So I can kind of see them doing that. But if they aren't going to get in those top 5 guys, which is probably not going to happen, then I want them to be taking shots on high ceilings, low floors, guys that they can develop, especially in the bats. I feel like I have faith in this organization that they can develop a bat. They can, kind of smooth some edges to maybe unlock some of the upside that's there, make them a little bit safer bet, and to be kind of add some helium to these guys to kind of skyrocket up these rankings in the system. I think that's where the gamble will be with this organization. So that's where I would go is give me some risk to hit some of that upside if we can.
I can't believe how screwed the Royals got by the lottery. Like,
It's
I'm
so
looking at
bonkers.
this, and at least these top 5, I'm like, oh, they had.
Yep.
I think they had the 3rd best odds for a top pick, and they ended up 8th. And like, it's not like the dude, like, it's just like the dudes that are there in that 6 to 10 range, like, they're fine, they're good players. They're they're going to be big leaguers. But like, Skeens is the best pitching prospect we've seen since Strasburg. Dylan Cruz is like, you could plop that dude in AAA right now, and he's going to go and produce. Langford is a legit right-handed power bat.
Yeah.
Walker, Jenkins, and Clark are some of the best prep guys we've seen since like Bobby, basically. It's like, and the Royals are going to miss out on all of them. It sucks. Well, we're going to talk about some of our my guys for the 2023 draft here right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
So we're going to do our my guys for the 2023 MLB draft. And this is like guys that realistically the Royals could take at 8. I would love to do a 10-minute diatribe on Paul Skeens. But I obviously am not going to be able to do that because he will not make it past number 2.
We'll do it when they get him at 8. We'll do it on the back end.
Is
it going to be like a Laramie Tunsil gas mask situation? No. Like in order for them, like they're going to have to do some messed up stuff in order for him to fall down the pick game.
If the Royals somehow manage to get Paul Skeens at number 8, I will run from my house to Kauffman Stadium and find a way to give Danny Otnaveros and JJ Piccolo a hug. Because that would be the most unbelievable steal of all time. It's not going to happen, folks. I would love it for that to happen, but it won't. Josh, we'll start with you. Who's one of your guys? We each have 2 on our list here.
We'll go around one at a time.
Yeah, so Josh, Jordan, and then me, and we'll work it around.
Okay, I'll start with a guy that our guy Alex Duvall at Royals Farm Report tweeted about today. He did a little mock draft of a scenario, and he came up with Enrique Bradfield Jr., and the comps on him are Juan Pierre, and you had me at Juan Pierre on that front. He's a true center fielder, traditional leadoff guy, good approach, great bat to ball skills, got a great command, really good defensive, and he's a speedy guy. He can handle the dimensions of Kauffman Stadium. Whether they'll be in the stadium at that time is up to decide by the voters here. But I feel like he's a traditional guy, left-handed bat that could roam those outfielders, man center field for a long time. The power is not there, and that is a problem. I don't know if there's any hope of there being power there, but if you can do everything else there, contact, approach, speedy, great defense, his arm's not much, but if you can check all those other boxes, you've got a good player on your hands. And there's rumors of him potentially going underslot to leave college. So I think that's a possibility, and I'd be ecstatic if they went after Enrique Bradfield Jr.
His floor is like 2.5, 3 wins. Like
I think so too. Yep.
Because the defense is so elite and like the bat is good enough that like he can stick around. If he is an like 85 to 90 weighted runs created plus guy, which I think with his contact ability is certainly feasible. And it's probably going to get boosted too, like because he has a little bit of gap to gap power. Like he just hits a ball toward left center at Kauffman. He's getting 2 easy. He's a legit 70, possibly an 80 grade runner and a true 80 grade center fielder. And the Royals have like made it known in the past, they're willing to sacrifice some offense for elite defense in center field. And that's the type of dude you could probably put him in the lineup by middle of 25 if he hits enough, because the defense is just going to be so good.
I've got Kyle Teal, big Kyle Teal, as my number 1 guy. I'm the antithesis of Josh. Like, he wants upside. I like Kyle Teal has upside, don't get me wrong, but like I want as safe of a bet with my 2 guys as I can get. I think Kyle Teal, man, he slashed 407, 475, 655, 13 home runs.
Seems good.
The strikeout to walk ratio was nearly 1. It was 36 to 32. Lefty hitting catcher, plenty of upside. Caught 12 out of 22 potential base stealers this past year. Elite defender behind the plate. Obviously, with the way baseball is going right now, that might not matter by the time he's a big leaguer, but I do think he can move out from behind the plate and play a corner outfield spot. I do think he's athletic enough to do it. So Kyle Teal, my number one guy.
My number one guy is a prep shortstop from Strawberry Crest, Florida, outside of Tampa, Arjun Nimala. He is 6', 170, pretty much like a 50 to 55 across the board as it sits right now. And he won't turn 18 until October of this year, which means for those at home, he was born in 2005.
How dare you?
Talk about
I know. People in the face with that.
God, I hate it too. God, it's just weird seeing that type of birthday. I hate it. But there is a lot of power in there for a guy that, like I said, 6'1", 170. Like there's not like he's kind of a wiry frame, but a ton of bat speed. He doesn't get cheated. Like the biggest thing with him that people talk about is he is a little more aggressive, and he'll take some pitches, but he really wants to do damage, and a lot of it is like just not recognizing spin right now. But as a 17-year-old, like that makes perfect sense. Like there's still a lot of maturation that needs to happen there, but there is a ton to dream on with this type of guy. So I think it's a good mix of, if nothing else, he's probably a glove first shortstop with enough bat that he can survive, but the power is there to where you think he could probably be like a 20 home run type guy. He can steal you some bags, play really solid defense with a chance to stick at shortstop. There's a lot to dream on with Arjun Nimala, and I would absolutely, like, I'd run to the board. I'd run to the podium if he was still there at 8.
Didn't he describe himself as like a patient, aggressive hitter?
That was, that sounds like Bobby, like almost to a T. Like
I thought it reminded me of Vinny a little bit, because
that's a good example. Yeah.
So I feel like they could bond over being patiently aggressive. I'm into that, and it seems like that might be Zumwalt's, what he wants to do. He wants guys hunting, so.
Like if the pitcher throws you your pitch 0-1, go tee off,
go get it. Yep, 100%. Let's talk about my philosophy of drafting upside. I think one of the biggest volatility profiles in this draft class is Hurston Waldrop.
I love him.
Out of Florida. Frontline starter stuff, if he can command it. He's got a fastball that can touch 99, but it goes very straight. Talking to Alex Duvall about him earlier tonight, that he kind of reminds him of Alec Marsh a little bit, but he's got the power fastball. He's got a good 12-6. He's got the slider. He's got a good split. So it seems like he's got 4 good offerings. He just needs to locate them. So if he lacks control and can't figure it out, you could still have some upside as a relief pitcher that could be really good as well. So you're kind of like bringing up the floor on him a little bit. But if he's got frontline starter potential as well, then I think that's worth a pick at 108.
I like it. I think it's a gamble, sure, but I think it'd be a fun one. My guy, probably not much of a gamble, and that's the theme for me. Matt Shaw, the infielder from Maryland, listed as a shortstop by most. I think he probably slides over to second base at some point. 21 years old, 5'11", 185, has played multiple positions defensively. Great eye. He had one more walk than he did strikeout this past season. Got on base almost half the time, almost 44%. 24 home runs, 20 doubles. Like, I think the power is mostly legitimate, even if it doesn't turn into
500-foot home run this year.
Yeah, I think it's legit. Even if it doesn't turn out to be pure home run power at the next level, I think he can still hit plenty of doubles, and I think he can be a fun player. Plus runner, pretty decent defender, a guy that can really accelerate through the minor league system really quick. That's probably the same with Kyle Teal. So Matt Shaw is my guy.
So I have a hard time saying this is like a true my guy, because it's like the most peak Royals type of pitcher pick. And again, like with just kind of the way that 18 draft has panned out at this point, it's like, I can't do it. But Rhett Lauder is a great pitcher. Like, I think he has like upside to be a solid big league pitcher. Now, it is not the upside of Paul Skeens or even Chase Dolander and some of these other guys in college, but he commands a fastball really well. He was a 2-time ACC pitcher of the year. He has a plus changeup. He can run the fastball up to 97, but it's like the most generic fastball shape ever. Like there's nothing special to it. It's just kind of there. Great pitchability, ability to work late into games. If you watch the College World Series, he went haymaker for haymaker with Paul Skeens, and it was awesome. 80 grade hair also. I hope the Royals let him keep that. But it would be a pick that is very simply, we just want to get a solid arm in our rotation. Like even if it's our number 3, like it's a pretty good number 3 to have. So it would be super safe, super Royals, but I think it would be fine. Like I think there's enough there that I don't think there's a ton of red flags, which I think was kind of the thing with Singer, with kind of what we're seeing it now, like no changeup, Kowar, fastball shape is not great, Lynch, injury concern. Like there was all sorts of red flags on a lot of those guys. I don't see a ton of that with Rhett Lauder, which makes me think it would probably work out if they took him. But he's the number 1 pitching prospect on the board, according to MLB Pipeline. So we'll see if he even makes it to 8. I'm not sure.
It's interesting, man. We had a wide array of different guys. It was really worked out pretty well, I think. Do we have any? Do you want to speed round like other my guys that won't be in play at 108 but might be available at another kind of point? I've got a few personally.
Okay.
All right, I got Cade Cooler. I know that Royals Farm has talked about him ad nauseum. 2.71 ERA, 91 strikeouts and 22 walks in 73 innings. Really good fastball slider combo. Zane Adams is from Porter, Texas. He's a 19-year-old pitcher, injured early in his junior season. Fastball sits like 91, 92, can hit mid-90s. Curveball, I think, is one of the best in the class. Changeup with solid bite. More of a lottery ticket, I think. He's committed to Bama, so not guaranteed to sign by any means. Then Blake Dickerson is an 18-year-old from Ocean Lakes, Virginia. He's another, obviously, prep prospect, committed to, I believe, Virginia Tech, I think, if my notes are correct. 6'6", 210, repeatable delivery, projectable pitcher, fastball, 92, 94. Slider borderline great, I think, with some late movement and then a developing changeup. So I went arm, and those are my 3 kind of under the radar, not 108 that maybe not everyone has heard of. And like producer Nick said, maybe Blake Dickerson needs to be playing basketball at 6'6", 210.
Another guy that I really like is Brock Wilken from Wake Forest, another Wake Forest guy.
Yeah.
There's no way that he gets past like 20, but I'm just like 6'4", 225, mammoth power. He hit 31 homers this year, which is the second most in the BB Core era. Solid defender, kind of gives you a little bit of Moose vibes in that way, that it's like kind of a thicker dude that you wouldn't think is a good athlete at third, but can certainly handle that really well. Yeah. Just gotta, that's why I just kept moving right through it. I don't know why you had to stop me there.
Oh man.
I don't really have anybody. I just want to see what the draft does to kind of come to us and see what we can make of it. So I don't really have anybody else to add. I think we've covered the gamut, it feels like.
Yeah, I don't have too many else. I've seen some like stuff kind of floating around that maybe a Walker Jenkins or something like that could fall based on some underslot stuff that could happen. I think Joe Doyle was on that. If for some reason he's there at 8, I mean, the Royals are getting an absolute steal. It would 100% be a full slot, maybe a little over for him, even though he does fall a little bit. But you're looking at like right now, and Pipeline is sometimes they're kind of generous with their grades, but it's 60 hits, 60 power, 55 runs, 60 arm, 55 field. Like it's above average just about everywhere. He's an outfielder. Like there's a ton to like there with a very refined swing approach and bat to ball for a dude that's 18 years old. If for some reason he falls, I mean, that could get really fun.
I dig it.
Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
We covered a shit ton, man. That felt like a marathon of a podcast. We covered injuries, we covered transactions, we covered several different like recent trends, MLB draft that naturally the team will take 0 of the guys we brought up, and we'll probably take someone that no one's heard of, at least for our sake. But it was a good time.
Same.
The only thing I want to mention really quick before we get out of here is that Austin Charles is going out of his fucking mind in Colombia right now, and it's amazing.
Dude, Tyler Tolbert also.
Tyler, known power hitter Tyler Tolbert.
He is on fire. I don't know. And John Rave also very, very good lately. So there's your minor league minute.
Yep, absolutely. We'll get out of here. We'll talk to you guys. I have no idea if we're going to do anything for the draft on Sunday. We'll figure that out. We'll let you know when we know. But if nothing else, we will talk to you next week, talking about the guys the Royals picked in the 2023 MLB draft, along with hopefully some more W's along the line. I'd like to talk about a team with more than 25 wins, and I'd like to see that by next week. We'll talk to y'all then.